Hi, it's Karen McClay, Director of Calmbirth here, and welcome to another episode of the Calmbirth Conversation series. And I'm really excited to have with me this evening Melinda Webb, who from the Birthing Web, who is one of the most amazing women I know. She is a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncturist in Sydney, as well as a doula, and one of my very beloved Calmbirth educators. And today she's going to have a chat to us about Chinese medicine and acupuncture for pregnancy, labour and birth, and that postnatal period. So welcome, Mel. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Karen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone and just let everyone know how you got into this work? What brought you to this space?
Sure. I'm Melinda Webb. I work as a women's health practitioner here in Roselle in Sydney. And I first began as a doula back in 2008 after the birth of my two children who are now 22 and 18. Two very different births. And then I think because there's a 4-year gap between them, I used Chinese medicine for fertility to fall pregnant. So that was the beginning for me. And then obviously working as a doula, a lot of people that I was working with also used Chinese medicine. When I became a birth educator, I did a year at the doula college, and one of the girls in my year was also a doctor of Chinese medicine. So it just kept on calling me. So I decided to go to UTS, and I studied for 4 years doing basically a degree in science, majoring in traditional Chinese medicine. So that took me into the world of learning. When you do traditional Chinese medicine at uni, you also have to do some lectures with all the nurses. So you learn the whole Western medicine side and all the, medicine or everything about, pharmaceuticals and everything like that. So my world sort of grew a lot. And and then I just decided to start practicing. So in my 4th year of Chinese medicine, I was lucky enough to have a mentor, and I decided to actually study fertility as part of my 4th year. But as I went through, I realized that fertility was a lot related to food. And because my husband owns a restaurant, I was already in the food business, but I realized that a lot of people had eating disorders and hence weren't falling pregnant, or during their pregnancy and then postnatally. So I've sort of combine those two passions of food and medicine now at the moment. So Chinese medicine and food, as well as working in clinic, is sort of where I'm at the moment with what I do, I suppose.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you were to describe Chinese medicine to someone, how would you describe it? Like, what is it? What's it about? What's its philosophy? I know that's a really huge question.
Look, I have to say, so I actually wanted to be a midwife, and I applied for midwifery and Chinese medicine, and I got into Chinese medicine, and I thought I'm going to switch after 1 year. But when I did a year of Chinese medicine, it changed my world, because you learn to read somebody from anything from their voice to the way that they smell to the way that they look. So you read their eyebrows, you read, facial gestures. There's a lot that goes into it. And I found that completely, literally, Andrew would say to me, Mel, I don't need to hear what that person at the next table is wrong with them just by you observing. Mm-hmm. So it sort of, took me into that. And then I understood that obviously working as a doula, it then takes you into working in a different style of partnership with somebody into their health and well-being. But Chinese medicine looks at the very base. So it looks at the person. It takes their whole self uniquely, and we sort of give them a pattern. So we look at their organs, but we look at their tongue, which tells us about the internal, whether they're hot or cold. Pulse tells us a lot of things. A lot of times in clinic, I can feel someone's pulse and be like, nice pulse, meaning you're actually pregnant. When I go out working as an acupuncturist into the hospitals, I do have to be careful, because I've been known to say, oh, your boy's going to be here soon. They're like, oh, we don't know what we're having. Because pulse also is one of those things you can tell a lot about somebody. So Chinese medicine sort of teaches you that people tell you a quarter of what's wrong with them, and then you put your hands on and you get the other 3/4. So it's pretty magic.
Right, okay. And that's a diagnostic thing. What's the philosophy with treating? Is it kind of like bringing that all back into balance? So if there's imbalances in what you're talking about there, is the treatment around bringing that back into balance, or How
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it depends on the individual, and each time you have a treatment, it changes. So, yeah, so someone can come in and they may come in for example, they have a skin issue, and we relate that to the organ because the organ is the most outer, the lung, sorry, is the organ on the most out part of the body, and that shows on your face. So if you're having, problems with your skin or rosacea, then we look at that, but then it sort of moves, it moves through. So each time we see someone, it's a new diagnostic tool to use for them. And that's why you get different herbs when you may see an acupuncturist. You also tell them certain foods are too warming, too cold, but it really rebalances that whole body from the gut right through to everything. So it can change the way you are musculoskeletally. Yeah, there's so many things that can happen when you work with someone and their body and what it's doing.
Right. And is it a lot about, I imagine the components of it is acupressure or acupuncture, sorry.
Yeah.
Acupuncture, and then a combination of herbs that goes with that. Is that right? With my understanding, and then nutrition. Would you say that that's kind of, or the nutrition's a sideline thing? What would you describe it as?
No, most definitely the Chinese medicine is about food and nutrition. So it's about, for example, warming foods, cooling foods. The Chinese say never eat out of the fridge. It should always be at room temperature. They have it, yeah. So especially in pregnancy care and postnatally, never eat cold, preferably no raw food. So it is a component of that. We do acupuncture, which works on the different channels of the body and all of the organs. Then you have acupressure, which is what we use in pregnancy and in labour and birth. We also do what's called Tuina, which is basically a body practice. And I use a lot of Tuina when I work out in the field as a doula. It can be just slight body movements that we do. You also have gua sha, which is a scraping of what we call sha, which can be like a sand under the skin to move any stagnation. Then you have cupping, which works the same way. It's like having deep tissue massage. Yeah, so Chinese medicine is a very broad range of things. Yeah.
And you work mostly in women's health. Would that be right? Would you say that to a degree?
Yeah, I'm very passionate. I find it's like second nature for me to work with women. I do work on their partners as well. I will see their partner, but because my clinic is actually within my home, I had a clinic in Leichhardt a few years ago and I saw both male and female, but my passion is definitely female. But, this week I've probably seen 4 or 5 men that are partners of somebody. I do see males, but I see only males of people I know, if that makes sense. Just because it's my home and I don't, not that there's anything wrong with men, but it's just, it's a safety net for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And so tell me, one of the big things as a midwife that I always tell women to do during their pregnancy is I refer them on to go and get some acupuncture and to see a doctor of Chinese medicine through their pregnancy. What sort of things can you do to help women during their pregnancy? Why would they go and see a doctor of Chinese medicine? What are the benefits?
Oh, look, I would have to say the first thing is mood changes, because we talk about in Calmbirth, especially mood changes leading into labour. But it's like I say, that whole thing of when you're going through puberty, your body grows so quickly. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of hormonal changes. So working with women in that way is probably one of the main things I do. Then obviously nausea, musculoskeletal issues, fatigue, stress at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of people that are very stressed. So yeah, and then when they come and see me, it's sort of, you begin to educate them and that allows them to change their lifestyle. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So it's really good. And when you're saying musculoskeletal, so things like pubic, like pelvis dysfunction, pubic dysfunction, things like that, unstable pelvises, all of that. Does that come into that?
Yeah, most definitely. Neck pain, shoulder pain. See people that are feeding that get, have that shoulder pain, neck pain, or just any kind of pregnancy ailment, really. It can be carpal tunnel. It can be any kind of, tendinitis of any kind. There are so many different things that happen as you go through, or just, lifestyle from being a teenage female right through to menopause as well. There's a lot of change that goes on. So continually working through it.
Yeah, oh, beautiful. And we know also working in midwifery, I know that there's a lot that acupuncture can do to help women prepare for birth and labor and birth. What's the principle behind that, and how would you work with a woman to do that? Like, is it about inducing labor? Is it about preparing the body? What is it about?
I like this question. Oh, look, when I first came out of university, I used to say, oh, I can induce labor. And then I just sort of was a realization that that's not real. People will come into clinic. I see a lot of like 80 to 90% of my clientele is definitely pregnancy related. And they say, oh, my doula sent me here, or my midwife, or somebody has sent me here, or a friend, because you basically induced them into labor. And I say, no, I actually help them relax, which actually put them into labor.
Yeah.
So it's all about flow. It's that flow, don't force. Yeah. You can't force anything. And I think for me, I obviously with the Calmbirth breath, and I've, do Buteyko, I finished my Buteyko practitioner, I use a lot of breath work for people to sink into that relaxation, because if no one is relaxed, it's the number one thing.
That's not going to happen. That's right. And that's the big principle in Calmbirth, isn't it? Is that relaxation response. And for people to understand that in order for birth to happen, it only likes to play with our relaxation system. So that's right. And that's why what you do is so beneficial to women. So when's the best time for them to come to see you? Like, when would you recommend that women come to see you for their pregnancy?
Look, it's a real individual thing. Some people come to see me when they've first fallen pregnant to hold a pregnancy right through to 12 to 13 weeks. Yeah. I have other people that see me on a weekly basis up to 20 weeks, because they still have some nausea, or not necessarily always nausea, but if they're working a lot, then they get a lot of fatigue, and then that nausea can come back in because the body's, not feeling as great as it should. It's that sort of thing. A lot of people come in whenever they feel like it. Like I say, whenever you feel like, it could be from sleep issues, so that goes up and down. Mood, there's a lot that comes into it. Postural, they start to get heavy. Usually at 34, I say come and see me to see, after you've been to your care provider, to see if your baby's in the right position, because moxa, or moxibustion, which is a Chinese herb that we use it's almost like a charcoal stick. Mm-hmm. So people will come and see me, and I will guide them through that, and then I send them home for the next 10 days to do their own moxa, to get a baby to move, whether it's posterior, any kind of, not the right position. And then I see other people from 36 weeks through. Then I see people, that could be 40 weeks and 4 days, and I meet them for the first time and I don't see them again. So it's
different. It depends what it is. Yeah. You're talking about Moxie as well. That's also really good for turning breech babies too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. A lot of people are very skeptical. For example, a doula sent me a client last week, and her baby was sitting transverse, and I was like, okay, I would like you to do this. We also need a point on the little foot. And so I sent that client off to do that work with the moxa. She came back in yesterday and was super excited, and her obstetrician was a little bit in disbelief, but her baby had moved in that time. Yeah. So it also is a lot of body work. Like I say to people, certain styles of massage, I teach them different things to do, and their partner as well.
Yeah. So, oh, beautiful. And we know that not so much acupuncture, but acupressure is really powerful to actually use during labour and birth. And I'm a massive advocate, because it's one of my biggest toolkits that I use supporting women in birth as a midwife. So tell us about how it can help during labour and birth. What things are really beneficial for women? And actually, this is something partners would be learning, isn't it? Yeah.
Look, I think when I first started going out as a doula and I started using acupressure when I was studying Chinese medicine, I recall being at RPA and the midwife looking at me going, what are you doing? And I was thinking, oh, okay. And she's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because the monitor's moving. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I practiced both Chinese medicine and Japanese is more shallow, and you would have seen me work, I think it was on Bernadette. It's all about touch. It's working with the body, working with the energy, the reflexes of the body. And so when I work with people here in clinic, partners, I show them a very simple tool and then get them to understand how powerful it is. Because it's very, very powerful. Acupressure is amazing, and to utilize it and understanding when to use it, there's hundreds of points on the body, but you only really need to use a select few. And yeah, I was at a birth on Monday at Randwick, actually. Lucky enough to be there with a single mum, which was amazing. But she was in the water, and I literally was leaning over the bath, using that inner shin point to really move labor down and move and get it going for her, and then the back points as well. It works magic. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, and it's fantastic for comfort, like it provides comfort, it gets contractions strengthened up, it helps headspace as well, which is a really big thing to do. It helps create downward energy and descending, bring babies into pelvises, rotate babies, as you were talking.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think as well is it connects the partner. Yeah. It connects the partner with the woman, and it's also about communication. So when a woman is in labor, if she's not talking enough, it might just be press harder, push more there. So it really gives that tool to the partner to use so that they feel that connection, and then they communicate with each other. And yeah, it's that beautiful flow. And I think also acupressure allows for flexibility. So you can use different points at different times. You don't necessarily get it wrong because it's connection, and touch is, it's oxytocin.
It's oxytocin. It's oxytocin. That the power of touch. It's so amazing. It brings in that beautiful, happy hormone as well. Okay, and then once women have had their babies, do you do follow up, or would you encourage follow up? Like, is Chinese medicine beneficial in that postnatal period for recovery, enhancing recovery?
Yeah, look, there's a really familiar term called mother warming, or the fourth trimester. To me, I talk to couples, or just women, about rebuilding the foundations. It's really important that you rebuild a foundation after you give birth, because if you intend to have another child later, you've got these really firm foundations again. So yeah, mother warming is really important. So it warms the body back up, it gets rid of any stagnation, and it heals. So using acupressure or moxibustion, or food, the simplicity of beautiful bone broths, or just warm soups. Like when I'm out birthing, I take miso soup sachets, and it's the first thing I feed someone after birth. Okay. Yeah, miso soup is beautiful, and it's got that energy to it. So yeah, it's about milk supply after birth. It's about energy. It's about resettling hormones. It's about boost. Look, there's mastitis. There's so many things that are great for after birth.
Yeah. So once a woman's given birth, would you say that you would advise her to maybe seek out a doctor of Chinese medicine, say within a week of giving birth, or have a few things lined up for that first week as well, that their partner could perhaps cook up or get prepared, or even get their village, so their friends and stuff, instead of them bringing mobiles and things over, they can bring over miso soup? And
look, when I teach my Calmbirth classes, I say to people, if someone wants to give you a gift, then give you a gift of a 2-week food roster, where your friends drop over food at 6:30 every night. They message your partner, or they message you to say it's at the door. Make sure that they understand your dietaries and you don't get a lot of the same thing. That is the beginning of having that tribal community around you. I definitely think that, I think for each person, it's very much an individual thing. For me, I really encourage people to come and have acupuncture after birth and do mother warming to get rid of any anxiety, because there can be a lot of anxiety about new baby, new boundaries in relationships. There's a lot of change. So it's bringing that flow back in. And also when you have a mum in here with her baby, then I show her some non-invasive techniques. So just some touch as well.
Yeah. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Mel. It was amazing. And again, if you're pregnant, if you're thinking about getting pregnant, go and see Mel or a doctor of Chinese medicine. that specialises in women's health. Where's the best place for people to find? Is there an organisation or a website that they can go to find acupuncturists or doctors of Chinese medicine?
Look, I would just recommend you just type in acupuncture and your suburb, where you live, the area you live. Anyone's welcome to get in touch with me. I can refer on to someone closer to home as well. It is nice to have someone close to home that you can work with, because then you'll meet other people as well. So yeah, otherwise there is the natural therapy pages, things like that. But if you just literally type in acupuncture, and you'll find it.
Yeah,
the beauty of Google.
The beauty of Google. You can find anything on Google, can't you?
Yeah.
All right then. Okay, Mel. Well, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later on.
Thank you, Karen. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, bye.